Sometimes when I write a story or come up with a story idea, the ideas that I come up with can come from anything from a movie that I've seen, a song that I've listened to, taking a walk and looking at a visual, just a random thought that came into my head, or a suggestion from a friend or a family member. It can come from almost any direction. In fact, eventually I'm going to tell you about a story I came up with that was purely created from a song and a visual. Like, it's true, that's what happened, but I'm not going to share that story with you today. The story I'm going to share with you today came from a very different source. It is a story that a lot of you might be familiar with, since I am actually reading this story to you guys in various audiobook episodes that I release every so often on this channel. That's right, this is the story of Troy and Frost. Troy and Frost was a story that I can't take full credit for. What I can take credit for is Elizabeth. Elizabeth Frost, the female deuteragonist, or one of the main characters at the very least, in the story. She was a character that I created a long time ago, kind of to be this femme fatale and noir-style character. And she was going to be a character in a different story I was going to write, but I abandoned the story because I realized it just wouldn't work. But I always liked Elizabeth Frost as kind of a character. I liked who she was, the kind of personality I gave her. Almost like a Jessica Rabbit style thing, or a Nico Robin style thing from One Piece. Very similar in terms of personality. Kind of this smooth, cool character. She had kind of a childishness to her, but also she'd been around the block. She'd seen things. She understood the way of the world. She had a very serious persona to her, and no nonsense. This was a woman with a lot of baggage, and she had seen the underside of the city. She'd seen the underbelly of crime and come out unscathed, and now used that understanding to help her in terms of surviving and just her daily work. But like I said, I couldn't think of anything to do with her. And then along comes my friend Jay. And Jay, well, he came and told me about a character he'd made named Troy, Detective James Troy, who was this 1930s and 40s private eye inspector who basically solved crimes, and it was an idea that he had, but he hadn't really come up with a real story for James Troy. He'd come up with like little images of him or little animations, but nothing major, like nothing big. And so I took that and said, hey, mind if I try something? And so what I did was I took James Troy and had it that his partner in investigating was Elizabeth Frost. And I just played with that idea a little bit, and then I ended up coming up with a story. It is a sort of historical fiction story, very fiction, less historical. The setup is this. It is late 1930s. It's supposed to be New York, but we call it a different name. I forget what name I call it right now, and I'm too tired to go look it up right now. This is late that I'm recording this. But what's happened is there was a murder at the local docks, and James Troy and Elizabeth decide to investigate it. Through the investigation, they find out that this dockhand was murdered because he saw something he shouldn't have, which leads to them discovering a Nazi U-boat in the harbor. Now, believe it or not, historically speaking, this wasn't entirely uncommon. U-boats from Germany back in the 30s and 40s did patrol our coastline for a while. That wasn't unheard of. But to see one docked and then to have this tie into the death of a dockhand, there's something fishy there. So James decides to investigate, and he discovers that this U-boat was carrying a very secret operation, a plan from the Third Reich to make sure that America never enters the war. Basically a threat by using chemical weapons. They have developed a way to release bombs filled with the chemical gas that they used on the Jews in the Holocaust, and have been planting these bombs all over the city in major transit points so that they could threaten the United States. Basically say, we're going to detonate one of these bombs to demonstrate what they can do, and then we're going to say, all right, we've planted these bombs in other locations, but if you deploy troops to Europe or into this theater, we'll start detonating them at random until people start dying, as a way to kind of strong-arm the United States into not acting. Now, you can argue with me over that whether or not that would actually work, but the point was, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people could die if this happened. And James Troy knows that he's got to do something about it. The problem is he lacks sufficient proof, and the German ambassador is doing his best to try to cover this up because he's probably in on it too. He also finds out that there's some Nazi sympathizers in the city who are helping to set up this plan, even though they don't fully understand the full scope of it. Along the way, his relationship with Frost is tested and grown in many ways. There are moments where his life is put on the line and Frost has to step in and use her connections to make things happen. And we even see kind of this flashback portion of the story where James goes into a coma and we get to see how he met Frost, which has one of my favorite scenes that I've ever written, period, for a story. It's been a huge project, and Jay has been nothing short of amazing in terms of helping me with this. Not only does he love giving me ideas for the story or helping me figure out how to write James, but he also draws fantastic pictures of James and Elizabeth. They look phenomenal. You've been seeing them on the screen every so often. It's just, it's incredible. I have loved every single image he's drawn. In fact, as a birthday present for me, he sent me a actual made wall portrait of Elizabeth Frost for me to hang on my wall. It's really, really cool, guys. Like, this has been a really fun story to work on, and I really wanted to share it in an audiobook context, even though I can't really do a female voice very well, so therefore whenever I have to read Frost's lines, it always sounds really weird, I know. But it's just one that I love to share and love to give out to you guys. Some of the better inspirations for this are noir-style stories, like, you got your Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You got your old-fashioned Columbo. Columbo was actually a fun little inspiration for a few chapters because, the way Columbo... If you don't know who Columbo is, he's this... a lieutenant with the police department who used to have his own show, who would solve crimes in a very unique way. So he was a major inspiration as well. Also had some inspiration from various other sources. But the point is, this has been a very fun story. Now, unfortunately, this series, as I've been making it, has not been super popular. It's probably my most least watched series of all my videos. To those of you who do follow it, I want to give you my utmost thanks. You have my sincere gratitude, and Jay's as well. If you haven't seen it yet and are at all interested, I'll leave the link to the playlist down below in the description so that you can check it out for yourself. I would really love it if you shared your thoughts about it, because it is a story that I'm very, very proud of. I've got a big plan. I already know where it's headed. I know what I want to do with it. It's just a wild time. I have loved building on this. I like noir style stories. I like detective crime style stories. I love will they, won't they romances that actually have the characters being competent. It's fun. This is a fun story. And I want to thank Jay for helping me make this a reality, allowing me to use James Troy in this story. He's actually told me, Jay, if Jay were here, he'd tell you himself, he's actually found a lot of fun in drawing Elizabeth Frost and kind of building on her character. And I really appreciate that. It's just something that really wanted to share with you guys. This one was a fun story. I love doing these every Monday, by the way, guys. I love doing these little story sharing. And I think I was really looking forward to sharing Troy and Frost, because this is one that not only have I been sharing on YouTube, but kind of a passion project of mine. I don't get to write my stories as often as I would like anymore, which is a major burden for me. I want to get back to story writing full time and focus more on that. Sometime what I'm going to need to do is just take a break from YouTube and focus on my writing, even though I know a lot of people don't read my work anymore. But I want to get back to writing. But while I've been taking a break from writing on my other projects, this is one that I never took a break from. I was constantly writing new Troy and Frost chapters, and not because I wanted to release them on YouTube. No, actually, I was still writing them even without uploading them on YouTube, because I just loved working on this story so much. It is just a lot of fun to play with. If you want to listen to the audiobook so far, you can check it out in the description. If you want to know more about the story or read a little further into the story, you won't get much further. I think there are only two other chapters out that haven't been released as an audiobook on DeviantArt that you can check out also below in the description. And if you want to see Jay's Instagram page to check out his art other than just the Troy and Frost stuff, I will leave that in the description as well, so you can see what kind of stuff he does. Other than that, that does it for this story sharing. Tune in next week for the next story sharing, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.